is round 6 of the Hong Kong Master Ball League. And over on the left, we have Cruz Ting, who just debuted the European International Championships 2026. And on the right, we have Edward Fan, who is a veteran of the game who's been playing for well over 15 years. One of the earliest people to ever play the Pokemon VGC competitively. So on Cruz's side, we have Zamazenta and Amoonguss versus Edward's Miraidon and Toxapex? So, some more context. Edward Fan is running a Terrapagos team, and the thing about Terrapagos is that it really sucks into Zamazenta and Koraidon. And you know what perfectly beats them? That's right, Toxapex. So we see Cruz Ting going for the Palm Puff to recover the HP of the Zamazenta. However, Zamazenta is not doing much here in front of Sinistra and the Toxapex. So I believe this archetype is Miraidon, Terrapagos, Toxapex team is actually created by one of Edward's friends, Brendan Zhang, and it's very annoying. So right now, it really seems like Cruz Ting is on the back foot because Zamazenta cannot really do much against these two Pokemon. And Toxapex is just slowly chipping them with infestation. So the thing about Toxapex is that it's really bulky. It does really, really well into Zamazenta. And the thing with Cruz's team is that Cruz is actually running Kyogre. So Kyogre Zamazenta doesn't really have a great way of breaking through this Toxapex. And Cruz is slowly being chipped down by the infestation onto Toxapex. Well, seeing Toxapex on stream is actually not very common. What is this, Smogon singles? So anyways, the Toxapex goes for Baneful Bunker, and Zamazenta actually goes for Body Press onto Sinistra. Cruz trying to make a read, but it severely backfired, and Shadow Ball chunks Amoonguss for some more of his HP. And Amoonguss's Pollen Puff actually does connect into Sinistra, breaking its Focus Sash. And Toxapex is back at full HP. So, this Toxapex wants to slow down the pace of the game. And, yeah. So, this Toxapex actually has Wide Guard as well, which means that it's got pretty good, tools to help support your team. And it's just very, very rough for Cruz Ting right here because Cruz, cannot really, really break through the team. Sinistra goes for Shadow Ball once again. And Shadow Ball KOs the Amoonguss, which means that Cruz actually loses some of the support potential, and Toxapex goes for Infestation again because Toxapex cannot go for the Toxic. So we see in our back that there is an Iron Jugulis and a Kyogre, but the main issue here is that Kyogre gets walled by both these Pokemon. And Kyogre doesn't have a great matchup into Choice Scarf Rhydon too. So we see Cruz lock into Body Press onto the Toxapex, but and going for Water Spout as well, calling Edward out, saying, I'm going to read me, to not click water spouts. And I'm going to click water spouts, and it's going to knock out both of your Pokemon, and it works! As Edward Fan goes for Rage Powder, and Kyler goes for the water spouts, which chunks Toxapex for a decent amount of damage. And Sinisha goes down. Um, Zamazenta goes for Body Press, but it does so little damage. This Toxapex is so bulky, and Toxapex uses Toxic, much like in Smogon Singles, and Kyogre's on a timer, and his water spouts are slowly getting weaker and weaker. His water spouts are getting weaker and weaker. But the thing is, Kyogre still get off the field because it's not getting hit by infestation. So Kyogre can still reposition, and Edward sends out Miraidon. Which threatens so much damage on the board right now. Edward could either just and right now we see Cruz Ting just saying, "I'm going to Terra my a Kyogre and hope that you don't Draco into it." Going for that read, or you can Volt Switch. Or you're going to Volt Switch, and I'm going to take less damage from that. That's and Kyogre goes for a Terra, turns into a Grass type. Turns into a Grass type. And Toxapex goes for a Baneful Bunker, which means that the Hydro Pump is not going to connect to your Toxapex that Cruz really wants gone. And Miraidon actually locks itself into Electro Drifts, and that KOs the Zamazenta. Was it? Kyogre's Hydro Pump hits into the Baneful Bunker of the Toxapex, and Toxapex regains some of its HP thanks to its leftovers item. So when Kyogre takes a tick of Toxic, this is badly poisoned, which means that over time, Kyogre is going to lose more and more HP as time goes on. So Cruz actually sends in the Iron Jugulus as his last Pokemon. So was this just going to go for the Hurricane and Origin Pulse? So this is booster speed. Iron Jugulus. Cruz is trying to scout for information, see if the Iron Jugulus is faster than the Choice Star from Rhydon or not. And Edward sends out Incineroar. Which gets hit by Hurricane. As Electric Drifts goes into the Iron Jugulus and knocks it out in one hit. And now Cruz has to hit the Origin Pulse on both Pokemon to have a chance of winning. And Incineroar goes down to the Origin Pulse. But this guy works on a timer. And with how bulky a Pokemon Toxapex is, and its resistance towards all of Kyogre's attacks, Kyogre cannot possibly win this 1v2. And you see that Cruz actually just forfeits because he knows that he cannot win. We're moving on to game 2, where Cruz actually opts to switch his lead into Iron Jugulus and Kyogre. Now, this is really awkward for Cruz because Toxapex could go for Wide Guard, and Miraidon does threaten super effective damage on both. However, Iron Jugulus is the fastest Pokemon on the field, and could potentially weaken Miraidon's Snarl, but Toxapex is Wide Guard, which creates a very interesting dynamic where Cruz has to go for hard raids. It reads. And as we see, Cruz does go for the Terra on the Kyogre. But will Edward read into this and actually go for the Draco Meteor? Iron Jugulis goes for Protects, protecting it from the super effective attacks from Miraidon. And Miraidon's Volt Switch actually lands into Iron Jugulis's Protects. And Kyogre's Water Spouts does some decent damage to Miraidon and Toxapex. And Toxapex's Infestation actually hits into Kyogre. But the thing is that there is a world where Hydro Pump, where this Jugulis goes for Tailwind and Hydro Pump knocks out Miraidon. So Miraidon. The Toxapex goes for a Baneful Bunker. As Iron Jugulis goes for a Tailwind. However, I do believe that Cruz actually locked into Water Spouts once again. And that it's going to deal more chip damage to the Miraidon. As Miraidon Volt Switches and knocks out the Iron Jugulis. The Iron Jugulis. Now, Edward is in her driver's seat once again because this Toxapex is so hard for Cruz Ting to break through. As Edward sends out Terapagos, and Terapagos is very, very annoying for this team. So here's the thing, right? As I said before, Terapagos struggles into Zamazenta and Koraidon, and Toxapex just happens to excel into those two. Excel into those two, and we see the Raging Bolts come in. So this is a Terrifier Covert Cloak Raging Bolts, which is perfectly tech for the Sun matchup, but I'm not sure if it will work that great for the Terapagos matchup. But since it is in Tailwind, it can go for Taunt. So we see Cruz just opting to Hydro Pump the Terapagos slot and taunt the Tossapex, and Edward actually going for the Terra to remove the rain so that Hydro Pump does less damage. Less damage. It also removes your terrain on a field. So Electro Web or Thunderclap is doing less damage as well. So Hydro Pump does go into Terapagos. It does around like half, but Terapagos is so bulky. And Terapagos actually goes for Raw Terra Starstorm. And it hits her Kyogre. But will Kyogre get freed from the infestation? Or will it go down? Kyogre gets hit by the infestation and faints to infestation. This is horrible for Cruz. So right now, this Toxapex could only use infestation, but Zamazenta is Cruz his last Pokemon. So Cruz actually opts to just double into the Toxapex slot, calling out Edward, you're not going to attack with the Terapagos. You're going to protect with the Terapagos, and I'm going to double into the Toxapex, which can only use Infestation now. The Toxapex switches out. Oh, this play has severely backfired, and it goes into Sinistra. Oh, this is miserable. Now, Edward could just run away with the game with Terapagos after it gets a couple boosts. Terapagos does go for Protect, so this is a perfectly safe play as Cruz goes for Thunderclap and the and Body Press into the Sinisha, and Cruz does nothing on his turn, which is so unfortunate. Zamazenta goes for Wide Guard, hoping to shield it and his teammates from the Terra Starstorm, but it's not looking likely as Rage Powder comes out from the Sinisha, and Raging Bolt goes for Electro Web, but it doesn't do much damage. Terabagos actually just opts to just go for Earth Power into the Raging Bolts, which brings down to the red. And it's looking really difficult for Cruz to win now. Win now. Both of Edward's Pokemon are at -1 state of speed, but in order for Cruz to win, he needs a lot of things to go right. Behemoth Bash goes into the Sinisha, brings it down to yellow. And Draco Meteor picks up the KO because it connects and picks up the KO. I've seen way too many Draco Meteor misses today. Earth Power comes out into the Raging Bolts. Raging Bolts. And now Edward could just go Miraidon and just click Electro Drift. Edward has got this game locked up. He could just attack with both Pokemon and he'd be fine. Like, Miraidon goes for Volt Switch, does a decent charge to Zamazenta. And Edward reveals his last Pokemon. The thing about going for Volt Switch is that he goes back to Toxapex. And Earth Power is going to deal a chunk to this Zamazenta's HP. Zamazenta barely hangs on 12, but it's over. He cannot possibly break through this Toxapex of Soul Zamazenta. And we see he's just taking off the headset and shaking hands with Edward. Very well played to both players. Especially Edward. That was a very masterful showing of how to play Terapagos, actually.